Good evening and welcome back to our Parsha webcast for the week of Parshas Emor, in which the Torah begins with the laws of the Kohanim, the Kohens, the priests, that they're not allowed to defile themselves by coming in contact with a corpse, even their own family in many cases, especially the high priest, who is, even for his direct, closest kin, closest family members, his mother, his father, his wife, his son, his daughter. He's not allowed to go to their funeral. He's not allowed to leave the temple. He's not allowed to defile himself and come in contact with any dead body whatsoever, except if he finds a body in the street that is left unattended, and you can't leave a body unattended, so then you're allowed to. He has an obligation to defile himself and bury the corpse. But if there is someone else that could deal with the burial, and he doesn't have to, he's not allowed to leave the temple grounds. That means that he's totally dedicated. Now this, if you have to think and understand this, because it's quite phenomenal. The Torah tells a Yid, a person, a human being, who, for example, just lost his son. Imagine, a Kohen Gadol lost his son, died. And it's not like it didn't happen. It happened to Aaron HaKohen. His two sons died. And what did God tell him? You're not to leave. You are to bring the sacrifice of the daily offering as if nothing happened. It's this is a very, very difficult concept to really comprehend. How is a human being who has emotions supposed to overlook the death of a child, the death of a father, the death of a mother, the death of a spouse, a wife, the death of a sister, the death of a brother? But the Torah does expect that. Now, it doesn't mean that he shouldn't feel, pain by it. Certainly he has to feel pain. But when you are designated for a specific job or mission, purpose, the Kohen Gadol is the one that has to be in the Holy Temple, that's where you belong. You're not leaving it. Now that's not the law for regular people. A regular person is not allowed to work during Shiva. He has to stay home during Shiva. You're not allowed to work. You have to leave your work, your mission, your everything. A Kohen Gadol is not allowed to, because I guess the Kohen Gadol is this figure that the whole Jewish people are dependent on him, and you can't allow your personal pain to compromise the community who needs you to offer the services on their behalf. Question?
You can't even attend the funeral, even if you're outside?
No.
Standing outside today?
Today, yeah, there is no Kohen Gadol today. There's no such a thing as a Kohen high priest.
This is only for the
Kohen. This is only in the temple time.
The Kohen can't step on police. If they go to a cemetery, it has to be in a separate.
In December, he's allowed to go to his father's
Yeah,
funeral.
but I'm just saying. But it can't be. But he can't step on the grounds of the cemetery. It has to.
No, they have to bury the Kohanim on the edge so that their sons that can come to the funeral can be outside the cemetery.
So this is only the Kohen Gadol. This is not
what I just said,
regular Kohen.
A regular Kohen is not allowed to defile himself to anyone other than his
but
closest
he can attend
family.
to funeral.
Oh, okay.
It's only his closest family, no one else.
So this is
and that's still today, already.
Yeah.
That's still today. Kohen don't go to funerals today.
Even I thought they just stood out.
Okay, so they're not at the funeral. I mean, if they're standing outside, they're not in the funeral. Basically, Kohanim don't go to funerals. Right? You know that. They go to Shiva. They pay a Shiva call, but they don't go to the funeral itself. All right? Then it talks about further laws of the Kohanim, who's disqualified to serve in the temple, who's not disqualified. If you have a blemish, what kind of blemish disqualifies you, what kind of blemish does not disqualify you, and so on and so forth. And then in the end, it talks about, the second half of the parasha talks about the laws of the holidays. All the Jewish holidays are enumerated in this week's portion. And it goes through each one, then first Shabbos, then Pesach, then Shavuos, then Rosh Hashanah, then Yom Kippur, then Sukkot. But after Pesach, before Shavuos, there's another law that is recorded, and that is the bringing of the Omer offering and the counting of the Omer, which we are now doing. And this is what it says. It says you should count for yourself from the next, after the first day of the Pesach, it's 47 times 7, it's 49 days, 7 weeks, and then the 50th day should be Shavuos. And on the 50th day you should bring a special offering, and that offering, before the 50th day. Then the second day of Pesach you're supposed to bring a special offering. What does that offering consist of? The Omer offering, and that is made of barley.
On the second day of Pesach.
Yeah. And then you start counting 49 days. Clear?
Is that the
According-
only time we bring barley?
Yeah. Then there's other times. A sota brings a barley offering. You know what a sota is? A sota is a woman that went off the way and she's suspected of committing adultery.
Yeah.
What?
Brings a
I
She's
know.
yeah.
There's a whole book about it.
Right, we're learning it now, yeah. There's 49 days of the Omer, we learned the 49 pages of the sota.
I don't
So
like
you're
that.
learning it also?
No, I don't like it.
Leave that to your husband.
Yeah.
So the sota also brings a mincha, or when she brings her offering, in part of the sota process, she also brings a barley offering. Then you count the 49 days, and on the 49th day, you bring, the 50th day, which is Shavuos, you bring a special offering, and I'm going to read to you what that offering consists of. From your places where you live, in the land of Israel, you shall bring bread that is designated for a higher purpose, 2 loaves made from 2/10 of an ephah. It's a measurement of flour. They should be made from fine flour. They should be baked leavened, since they are the first meal offering to God in the new season. Okay. Then you have, as I mentioned, Pesach Sheni, which is not mentioned in this portion, but because it's Pesach Sheni, let's talk about that too. Pesach Sheni is mentioned in the next book, the book of Bamidbar, and the portion of Baha'al Loischa, and that is when a person is unable to bring the first Pesach because he's defiled. He had a funeral, he came in contact with a corpse, so he's Tamei, and he's not allowed to bring the offering, so God gave them a second chance in the next month, exactly a month after the first Pesach, to bring the Pesach offering. And over there the Torah tells us that they should eat the Pesach meat of that offering together with matzahs and together with mor, bitter herbs.
But on Wednesday we only eat matzah, we don't eat maror.
Right, no, we don't, but because we don't have the Holy Temple. In those times, if you brought the second Pesach, you had to do it together with matzah and mor. But the rabbis tell us that the big difference between the first Pesach and the second Pesach is the first Pesach, you eat matzah, and God forbid you should have any chametz, of course. But in the Pesach, chametz u'matzah imei babois. He can have chametz and matzah at his Pesach Sheni meal. He can have a pita, bread, with matzah and mor. You can have a bagel, you can have a roll, you can have a challah, whatever he wants, he can have it. He doesn't have to, but he could. So what I want to talk about today is 4 points. Pesach, you're not allowed to eat matzah. But then we know the minig of Hasidim and many others that don't eat any gebrochts on Pesach. Gebrochts is wet matzah with water. But that is cancelled or relaxed on the last day of Pesach. On Achron Shel Pesach, we are told that you could eat gebrochts, and we have a minhag to eat gebrochts as much as we can. Then but not chametz, God forbid. On the 8th day of Pesach, you're not allowed to eat chametz. So on the first 7 days, you're not allowed to eat any chametz, and we're even so careful that we don't eat any gebrochts. And the reason we don't eat gebrochts of wet matzah is because just in case there's a piece of flour in the matzah that wasn't fully baked. And if it gets wet now with water, it can pass 18 minutes and it can leaven. God forbid on Pesach. That is relaxed on the last day of Pesach. No chametz, but we could eat gebrochts.
Why?
We'll talk about that. Then you have the rest of the Sfiras HaOmer. The Omer offering was brought with barley instead of regular flour, wheat. And on Pesach Sheni and the whole time you eat matzah with, you can eat chametz as much as you want. You don't have to eat chametz, but you could eat chametz. In other words, if you are not going to eat bread during the whole counting of the Omer period, God bless you, you don't have to eat bread. You could. You can live on rice, you can live on whatever you want, you don't have to eat bread, but you could eat bread. Come Shavuos, the Torah tells us over here, we give you no option. Over here you must bring bread and bread offering, a leavened offering, which is the only time in the whole year that the Jewish people are told they must bring a bread offering.
Really? Even Shabbos? Don't you have to have a
No,
You don't have
that's
to?
not an offering.
Oh.
You have it on the
Do they
table.
burn it
but
on
it's
the
not an
altar?
offering. On Shabbos you're allowed to eat matzah instead of bread. You don't have to eat bread.
Oh.
You can eat matzah if you want. You know that. You can eat shmur matzah the whole year if you want.
Mm.
But on Shavuos in the temple you had to bring bread. So you have interesting 4 stages. First 7 days of Pesach, no bread, no gebrochts even. We stay so far away from leaven that anything that smells leaven you got to stay away from. Even if it has this far-fetched possibility, you don't. The 8th day of Pesach, we're not so worried about far-fetched possibilities. We say eat gebrochts. No bread, no leaven, absolutely not. But we're not worried about the far-fetched possibility. Then comes the after Pesach till Shavuos. You say eat as much bread as you want. Don't eat. Do whatever you want. You could. You're allowed. Come Shavuos, you say over here we're going to force you to eat bread. So this is a progression from the furthest thing from staying away from bread completely to making bread part of your service. And it kind of like goes in stages. We keep getting closer to bread as the days go by. First 7 days we're away. The 8th day we're not worried about far-fetched possibilities. We eat gebrachts. Omer, you can eat bread all you want. Shavuos, you're going to eat bread. And then comes in the last point, as I mentioned, that in the Omer offering they brought barley, not bread, not wheat. What was the reason for all of this? So this brings us back to the whole question of Pesach. What's Pesach? Pesach is Yetzias Mitzrayim, the day that God schlepped us out of Egypt, and we spoke about this many times, that in Pesach, if God would not have schlepped us out, we would still be there till today. Because we have been corrupted in Egypt, and God had to pull us out. We had no choice. It was a disaster. The Jewish people were going to be lost forever. Right? Mm-hmm. Our souls were not where it should have been. We're not worthy of this exodus. God in His kindness took us out. Why did He take us out? In order to go to Mount Sinai and become the Jewish people, the chosen people that will carry the mission for all mankind for eternity. Which is what happened at the great revelation at Mount Sinai, where God came down to the mountain and said, I am your God and you are my people. And gave them the Torah and the mitzvahs, and the rest is history. But when did He give them the Torah and the mitzvahs? 50 days after He took them out of Egypt.
After the Omer.
After the Omer. God said, I'm going to get you out of Egypt, but I'm not giving you the Torah. For this you got to prepare yourself. For this you have to prepare. And how do you prepare? You count. Every day, you count the Omer. Now, if you look into the Siddur, you will see that every day of the Omer, there's a corresponding Sephirah. You saw that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Today is what? Well, yesterday, because today we didn't count the Yom yet. But last night was Yesod of Netzach. Right? So every day, how many spheres are there? 7 emotional spheres. But every one of those 7 encompasses all other 7. So it's a total of 49, makes up for 49. Just to give you an example, what is considered the interrelation between the spheres. So let's take the first 2. You have chesed of chesed, unadulterated kindness. Chesed within chesed. When a father buys a bar of chocolate for his child, because the child is such a wonderful child, so the father loves the child, and he's doing an act of kindness to his child. So it's love within love. It's chesed within chesed. The whole thing is chesed, motivated by chesed. But then there's gevura of chesed. For example, this severity within chesed. What's severity within chesed? Discipline within chesed. A father's, let's say, punishing his child. So, this gevura, this strict judgment. But what's motivating that strict judgment? Love, chesed. So it's gevura of chesed. Now take the other way. Gevura, chesed of gevura. Then let's take the second week. You have gevura within gevura. Is when you hate someone and you punish and you kicked up and you punish him. You hate someone and you punish them. So the whole thing is gevura. It's gevura within gevura. The act is gevura, motivated by gevura. Then you have chesed within gevura. What's chesed within gevura? Yasser Arafat smiling and shaking Yitzchak Rabin's hand. It's an act of kindness, niceness, but it's motivated by hate. He's loving him to death. He's embracing him with and stabbing him from the behind, from the other side. You understand what I'm saying? It's a chesed, but it's motivated by gevura. It's not motivated by love. And which one of us has within our own psyche these 49 character traits? Your loves have to be perfected. Your judgments have to be perfected. Everything has to be perfected. Your compassion has to be perfected. And each one has within each other the 7. So every day of the Emor, we are told to perfect a certain part of our character. What part of our experience, of our existence needs perfection? Our neshama or our nefesh habahamis, the animals, the animalistic soul. The animalistic soul needs to have perfection. And the 7 weeks of the Emor are there to perfect the animalistic 49 character traits. Correct? That is, by the way, and then when we get to Shavuos, we've elevated all 49 character traits, so we reach the 50th day, which is connected to Mount Sinai, to Hashem's 50th level, which is eternity, an eternal connection with Hashem. That is, by the way, the reason why in the Omer offering, which starts this process, as I said on the second day of Pesach, was brought from barley. As it says in the Torah that barley, the rabbis tell us, barley is animal fodder. Why are we bringing animal fodder as the Omer offering? Because this whole thing is about elevating the animal within you. Just like the Soita, not to compare, but the Soita brings Sa'irim, which is barley. The Gemara says she behaved like an animal, so her offering should come from animal food. So we bring an animal food to deal with the animal. Huh?
Very good.
Okay. Now, let's start this explaining the whole business of this progression. The first, God says chametz is a terrible thing, an animalistic thing. What's wrong with chametz? We all know it's gaiva, arrogance, rises above everyone else. It's not bittul, it's not humility, and so on. So God says 1 week a year, I want you to stay away from chametz at all costs. Because as long as because you're still so unperfected, you're still so raw, your souls are so raw. And the first day of Pesach, God schlepped us out from nowhere, from the worst of the worst. So the last thing He needs us is to have any connection to any form of arrogance, to any kind of chametz. He says you're staying away from this 7 days at all costs. But is chametz bad? It depends. Some chametz is good. What chametz is good? What kind of arrogance is good? To give you a simple example. When a kid in the college campus, for example, has to keep Shabbos, and has to keep kosher, and no one around is keeping kosher. Not only are they not keeping kosher, they're maybe even, not only they're not keeping kosher, maybe they're even making fun of this person who's keeping kosher. And intimidating this person, saying, well, you're sugar, well, this is not, when did you become so religious, and when did you do this, and if they're goyim, it's all together. Sometimes you didn't know where the goyim in this thing, but okay. Or, for example, on college campus today, you have so much anti-Semitism in the open, and sometimes the Jewish kids are a minority over there, and they have to stand up for themselves and take a stand, either for Israel or for the Jewish people. It takes a certain arrogance, a certain pride, a certain brazenness from a Jewish kid to be able to stand up in a college campus and say, I support Israel, and stand one guy with a flag and the other side is 200 Palestinian supporters. That's arrogance, but it's a good arrogance. It's Jewish pride. So that chametz is very blessed, very welcome. But in order to make sure that your chametz, the arrogance that you have, is kosher arrogance, God says, let's take a system. Well, let's make a system how to make sure. And this is the system. He says, for 7 days you're going to stay away from all arrogance. You're not going to eat a speck of chametz. He says, even gebrochts you're not going to eat, because it may lead to arrogance. It may lead to chametz. Stay away from that also. It's far-fetched, but it's so... We want you to be clean from arrogance at all costs. Stay away from even gebrochts. But after 7 days of Pesach, right? On the 8th day, which is the 7th day of the Emor, by the way, right? The 8th day of Pesach is the 7th day of the Emor. So once you come home from shul that night, you finish counting 7 days of the Emor already. So you perfected already a certain 1/7, one complete attribute of your animal soul, as it's interlinked with all other 7. Chesed of Chesed, Gvura of Chesed, Tiferes of Chesed, Netzach of Chesed, Hoid of Chesed, Yesod of Chesed, and Malchus of Chesed. So you got already a hold of all 7 animalistic traits as they're interlinked with Chesed, right? God says you already perfected your animal. You got a hold of your whole animal soul, at least from. You touched already on all 7 attributes of your animal soul to perfect it. So now we're going to relax. You can eat gebrochts. Why are we allowing you? It can become chametz. It's 8th day of Pesach, it's still Pesach. God says you already perfected all 7 of the attributes as they're connected to chesed. You're on a level already where it won't become chametz. It won't become chametz. When could something potentially become chametz? When your animal is still in full force. But when you already perfected one whole sphere as they're connected to all 7 attributes, your part of your animal is already perfected. God says, I'm not worried about this ever becoming chametz. This is no longer becoming chametz. You're on a higher level already. So eat all the gebrocht you want. Because it just won't become chametz.
It won't become chametz.
Because your soul is on a higher level already. It's not going to become, this matzah won't become arrogant. This matzah will not turn into arrogance.
I'm sorry, but that still, isn't that a minhag, no gebrocht?
Sure.
So it's not such hard.
Minig Yisrael Teirei. Minig Yisrael is Teirei, by the way. Then comes the days after Pesach. But God said, you finished 7 full days? You're into the second week already. You don't have to eat chametz. Now he leaves it up to us. He leaves it up to us. He says, look, you got to now know yourself. You finished a whole week of perfection, and you got a hold of every one of those spheres. So now examine yourself. Are you able to eat bread and it doesn't pull you down? Are you able to have a little arrogance in your life and it doesn't pull you down? Go by all means. Big isn't they? Do it. But if you can't, because you need 2 full weeks, you need to get a hold of another aspect of all 7 of your animal traits. Then wait another week. If you can't eat bread, then wait. It's up to you. You have to know yourself. If you eat matzah, it's not becoming chametz. But if you eat bread, it's chametz. So now we have to see if you're ready for chametz. Only you know. Only you can know that. Because you haven't yet fully perfected all 7 times 7. So you're still vulnerable. You maybe not, maybe yes. Hashem says you can have chametz if you want. Meaning if you want. If you're okay, if you're not, if it won't pull you down, gesundheit. But then you come to Shavuos, the 4th level. Over there God said you finished 49 levels. You've perfected your animal soul completely. Now it's not up. Now I don't only want you. Not only are you allowed to eat chametz, but now you have to eat chametz. Because chametz, my friends, is not internally bad. It's not internally bad. It's also part of God's world. And He wants that as part of His service. He wants that kid on college campus to raise a flag of the Jewish people. To wear his Jewish identity on his in the open, his yarmulke, his tzitzis, and so on and so forth. That arrogance is a mitzvah. That arrogance is a big mitzvah. Chametz teyafena, bake it with chametz, as specifically leaven. Because now I trust you 100%. Now I know it's not going to pull you down.
Right.
Because you went through 49 perfect days of perfection. So now you have to have chametz. Because if you leave out that arrogance, you're going to be a wishy-washy person. They're going to step all over you. You need to have chametz at the end of the day. But you have to make sure that chametz doesn't pull you down. It pulls you up.
Kosher.
Has to be not just kosher ingredients, but
No. I mean,
psychological.
I didn't need kosher ingredients. I meant,
Yeah.
So,
and the Torah says on Shavuos it's kosher chametz. On Shavuos you finished perfecting yourself. You're on the 50th level in the chamber of God. That's where chametz is very welcome, and therefore and therefore an obligation.
not that your explanation wasn't good enough, Rabbi, but what is the significance? I mean, Pesach Sheni, bringing in that matzah again. Does the commentary speak about how? Because you went through different levels and different a transformation.
Well, we're talking about
process.
the person that missed the first Pesach.
Right, but does it have to do anything with the transformative process? Because
yes, it does. That's why I said on Pesach Sheni, the law is that you can have both.
Right.
You can have both.
You can have both.
Yeah,
okay,
chametz and matzah ime babayis. So you have both chametz and matzah. Not an obligation.
Oh, it's an obligation to eat
not
matzah.
Matzah, but not chametz.
Oh,
So you have to.
You don't have to eat
chametz.
chametz.
Both, though.
So Pesach Sheni is representative of the days of the Emor between Pesach and Shavuos. The first days of the first 7 days of the Emor are still part of Pesach. So over there's no chametz. But because you already finished counting the 7th day, God is not worried about far-fetched situations.
But why did you say if it was missed?
That's why. That's what Pesach Sheni is all about.
The carbon.
If you miss the sacrifice, the first.
It's so interesting how we have to that we still have to.
And
So
eat
one
it
second. So
today.
Pesach Sheni represents the 6 days, the 6 weeks of the year.
Okay.
It's representative of the 6 weeks of the Yom,
Okay.
where the process is chametz umatzah ime babois. You can have both if you're at that level, if you're able to. It's up to you. Only you know yourself.
So interesting.
On Shavuos God says, I know you. And I'm telling you, eat chametz. You're there. God knows this before also, obviously. But every person is different. So, if you're not there yet, then don't do it. If you're there, by all means. On Shavuos, he says you're all there. Because on Shavuos, you're in my inner chamber. You're near me. You're included. You're brought up to Mount Sinai. As the prophet, King Solomon says in the King of Songs, the Song of Songs, what is Shavuos? Havi'ani hamelech chadorov. I'll start before. There's a verse in Shir HaShirim, and with this I'll conclude. Moshcheni acharecha narutzo havi'ani hamelech chadorov, which means, he's talking to God, the soul of the Jew is talking to God. Moshcheni, draw me. Acharecha narutza, after you we will pursue you, and bring me into your inner chamber. What is he talking about, Shlomo HaMelech, in this verse? So the Chassidic masters tell us that Shlomo HaMelech is talking about Pesach, Emor, and Shavuos. Pesach is Moshcheni, draw me. Draw me singular. Who did God draw on Pesach? Yeah. The Jewish people out of Egypt. He sucked us out. He schlepped us out. Who did he draw out? The neshama. The animal soul was not at all, it was just pure animal. So Hashem schlepped out the neshama from the abyss and saved it. Saved the Jewish people from the abyss, right? From being lost forever. But then comes the Yema, we say, Acharecha narutza. After you, we will pursue, both, plural. Who's we? Now the neshama is going to be pursuing God together with the animal in the soul. Because now we're in a process of getting the animal soul to come along on the ride. Each two has to be perfected. Once the Yema days are finished, and the animal soul together with the godly soul pursued God and got into a longing, into a perfection, into a process of transformation, then we say that on Shavuos comes the third level, which is Haviyani HaMelech Hadorav. Bring me, king, into your inner chamber. What's the inner chamber? The Shara Chamishim, the 50th gate, which is the gate of the infinite God, the infinite Eir Ein Sof. When you go into that gate, you never leave. And that's indeed what happened. We went into the 50th gate on Shavuos, we never left from there. You can fall, but not into the abyss. You can never fall again. The Jewish people can never fall again into the abyss. No matter how you corrupt yourself, there's always hope. Your neshama is always going to be connected to Hashem. You can never lose that connection. So that's Pesach, Emor, and Shavuos. It's one long stretch.
And wasn't
Pesach, no matzah at all. The last day of Pesach, we finished one sfira times 7. Go ahead and eat the gebrocht. Next 6 weeks, it's up to you. Know where you are in life. If you can handle it, go gesundheit and handle it. On the contrary, if you can handle it early, before Shavuos, by all means, bring it into the service of God even earlier. But maybe not. You're not there yet, so he leaves it up to us. You could eat. You don't have to. On Shavuos, you're all there. On Shavuos, he says you're all in connected to Hashem at the highest level. Now you got to bring all the chametz into this process as well. Kosher chametz, positive chametz, good arrogance, good pride. So now go do it and have yourself a wonderful rest of the week.